Patrol is in basic terms a fleet like this. It is not a good patrol fleet because it is more like strike force, but which just looks for ships in this area. Normally, what you should do is put out patrol fleets at narrow engage because they will just see a ship, tell the strike force, which we're gonna get into next, to come here and attack. These personally, you want fast destroyers, and light cruisers, with high surface detection. If you press on a ship, you can see the surface detection. You want the speed close to 30. In reality, you want something more like 35, but in early game, you don't really have that many destroyers that are 35. I think these are 35, yeah. So these are the best early game for England at least. And you also want this one, aircraft facilities, because they give a lot of surface detection. It gives 7.7, which is great because you want them to spot the ships and not just not spot them. So personally, I normally do something like to select the ships, just press on this and then hold shift to select multiple ships. I personally like to do one light cruiser and 4 destroyers. It's simple, cheap, and if they die, they die. No one really cares. A good template for this is this is a good patrol light cruiser. Maximize the surface detection with radar and 2 aircraft facilities. It has some guns and some anti-air capabilities because they probably might get engaged by aircraft, but not so much other ships, as they will just run away. And that's also why you need a good engine to keep up, because if you use the first one, it goes down. It doesn't seem like a lot, but in practice it will be a lot. For the destroyer, you want probably something like this. It doesn't really have any weapons at all, but it has a radar, some attack capabilities. You probably can get away with using something like this, but personally I like a bit heavier battery. Production cost wise, it isn't that much difference, but it's extremely important to have the radar. And of course a fast engine, because you want them to run away and not die. Another important thing to note about patrols, you can only cover one sea zone. So if I split it off by selecting it and pressing at the top, and then pressing on patrol, selecting the sea, then it's right now it patrols that sea with no problem. But if I press another sea, like the Central Mediterranean Sea, it only covered that zone. As you see here, 0 out of 1. Nothing is getting detected here. Strike Force. The Strike Force is the main battlefield. This is like where you put basically all production to. In personal opinion, I have not actually changed these, but the Strike Force, this one right here, is the one where is the Battle Force. The ones who will actually engage the enemy ships and will sink them. For example, this fleet, which is the standard fleet, the United Kingdom has, well, it actually has these ships in it, but like whatever. This fleet is a good example of overcompensation. Well, okay, this is Strike Force. Okay. Strike Force. The Strike Force is the main battle fleets. In the Strike Forces, you put all your carriers, battleships, and stuff like that. Also heavy cruisers, and like destroyers and stuff. An important thing to note is you can either choose to have a primacy of battleships or carriers. In England, they have 5 battleships, but they have, if you actually look at the doctrine, which I'm gonna get into a bit more later, they go into a fleeting being, which is the battleships doctrine, and they have a lot more battleships than carriers. This is the one who's gonna do the heavy hitting, and this will just slightly give some bonuses because air is extremely important in naval combat. But the composition of this is important, a good composition. What I mean by good composition is per one capital ship, which are heavy cruisers, battleships, carriers. You see here, this means capital ships. See in here, all of them have it. And the other one is battlecruiser, which, as you see here, battleship, capital ship, light, and they need to be in a 1-to-4 ratio with the smaller ships, the screens. As you see here, this is a screen ship. It has no check mark over the capital ship mark. They have. They don't even have the possibility. They don't. So, if you get back to the fleet, so if I have one carrier, or the carriers are a bit special. If I have one heavy cruiser, I should have at least 4 of the screens, which are, so in this example, I have 2 light cruisers and 2 destroyers. This is a good combination. Okay, but what happens if you don't follow the US guidance of having one capital ship to one destroyer, or one per capital ship 4 screens? What happens if the torpedoes can penetrate, can go through the screens at this perfect, at a perfect point? If you don't follow the guidelines and what happens if you don't follow the guidelines of per one heavy ship having 4 light ships? Then you won't achieve 100% screening efficiency. That means the enemy's torpedoes can pierce through and hit the hit the capital ships. And what happens then is that torpedoes do a lot of damage to the capital ships, meaning they will die quickly. That is why you want so many destroyers and so many light cruisers while having very few capital ships. This is a bit too many destroyers for this small amount of capital ships, but I'm gonna show how to reorganize. To reorganize, just simply either press the Navy tab here, or press down the ships here. I personally like the Navy tab more, so I'm gonna show that now. Just press there, hold shift, press on all the fleets here, like these. Then you have them all selected. Press on one. Press right here beside them. Just say OK. Everyone will just go into one ship. Oh, I forgot one. You can also just press one here and press on that one. Then everyone is in the same command. Press on the command. Press select all. Then you select everyone single under it. Press on one of them. Press OK. Wait a few days, and they'll all go back to Britain and merge. Why you should do this? It's very simple, because then it's easier to build up the conversation. Okay, now we have all of them home. So then now you can start and trying to build up a strike force. You then go like here, and for example take 4 battleships. To do this, just press on one of them, hold shift, and then press 3 others. And then right click besides it, then they separate. Then we say you want a carrier, because carriers give good bonuses even if they're not the main focus of the strike force. Okay, then we just take a carrier, take this one, and select it and just right click on the fleet, and then they will merge like that. Right now this is a very bad strike force because it doesn't have any screens, but we'll solve that later. Then we say we probably want some heavy cruisers to get some more have some more heavy attack, because that is very important. I'll take just a few of these, like that. It should be good. Then we have 13 capital ships. So we want 13 screen ships. In personal opinion, what I like to do is take, instead I have for every 3 destroyers I want to have 1 light cruiser. So in this 1-4 ratio, we want 13 times 3 destroyers and then 13 light cruisers, because then you get the 1-4 ratio, and then give me some extra firepower through light cruisers, which are very good. You could theoretically just use light cruisers, no capital ship, no destroyers, but heavy ships are the better choice. Okay, now we have a new fleet. We have the battleships, the capital ships, the light cruisers, and the destroyers. To do, so right click, select the task force, and then right click on the other task force to fuse them. And now we have 6 strike ships and this is a decent strike force. An important thing to note here, I did a crucial mistake, because if you look at the design of these, this is quite good, and so are these. This is quite good ships, but for example, if I choose one of these, this is not a good ship at all, because they have basically no attack. They have 1 battery and 1 torpedo tube, versus the other one I took, which also has versus this one who has 2 torpedoes, versus this one who has 2 torpedo tubes, which doubles the torpedo attack, as you see here, which makes them a lot better. So some ships you want to upgrade, because they're just in general too bad. So and that's quite simple to actually do. So we find these ones, which are the good ones, and then we find the shit ones, like we found the shit ones like that ones, and then you select every one of them by double clicking to get template, because we want to change around with the shit template. And these are carriers. These are some shit. These are like convert carriers. You can convert some ships to carriers specifically. But it's quite weird. If we then show outdated, because the ones we actually want to convert to are not actually in production anymore, and we just find the ones we want to convert to. That's a heavy cruiser, for example. These ones are the ones you want to convert to. So it's the Emerald class. Press on it. Press OK. And now if you look in the production line, we'll see 6 now new cruisers, which are slightly done, because they're just refitting them and not actually building new ones. In basic, this is very important, because some ships are basically useless, but if you upgrade them, they can actually become very useful. Also, what are important stats for a battleship is also a good question to do. Take a battleship, carriers are special. I'm going to talk about them a bit later. You want heavy attack. So if you want to make a custom design, you most of the time just want to bombard them, build with heavy attack. Sometimes you can't do heavy attack, then you probably want some anti-air, because they are quite easy. They have a risk of dying most of the time. But for example, 46 heavy attack is good. The normal one is 26, which isn't that good, but can do for most of the time. But for a strike force, you don't really want speed. For a strike force, you don't normally care about speed. Range is important, because then you can work be farther from your homeland and from the ports. So for like the allies, it isn't really that important because, as you see, I have ports everywhere. For example, like Germany, you don't have ports everywhere. So in that case, your range can be extremely important. Another thing to note is there is armor and piercing. So to show like show a battleship like this one. Armor piercing. If the armor piercing is higher than armor, you get a bonus. And important thing to note: if it's a capital ship, it will take heavy piercing, and if it's a light ship, it will take light piercing. Strike force can operate in multiple zones at once, as you see here. But okay. A strike force can basically operate everywhere from the port's range. So not in the mid-Atlantic, because then you need to go to another port, but from this port right here, you can operate basically everywhere. Maybe not the Barents Sea, but yeah, as you see here, it's striped over, meaning you can't operate there. And also an important thing to note about strike force, they will just stay in port until patrol finds a ship that they can attack. Okay, convoy raiding, it's in the name. You raid convoys. This you normally mainly do with submarines, but you can actually do with heavy cruisers. If the heavy cruiser has a long range, as this doesn't have, some have, some don't, they can actually be used to convoy raid. It's a risky move, but can be extremely useful because they need a lot more. You need a strike force to take them down instead of just a few convoys, a few destroyers. But normally you have a fleet of submarines. You like this one. That is, if you open here, you can actually, and if you open this tab and then choose tab, optimal amount is 20. So I'm gonna do that. Unpause for a second. Like this. It's the optimal amount is 20. And if I put in convoy raiding, it will go around and raid the convoys of the enemy in a war. Templates. Submarine templates, you most of the time want maximum firepower. So this is an extremely bad template. Also, another thing to note is early submarines, like these ones, are bad in general. It's like an early battleship can work. Most of the time actually works kind of good. But an early submarine is literal trash. The 36 ones are good, but the 9040 ones and the 44s are overpowered. So in some multiplayer games, they are banned actually. But convoy raiding, as you see here, they have an efficiency. It's how much of the region they cover. Doesn't mean they always take convoys in the region, but that they have reached them a maximum amounts of convoys they can take down. So if I unpause, it has a 30-30-30 split here. This is because I've selected more than one zone. So if I do this and do this, 100% efficiency. But if I do this, it only has 30%. That is because there's only one task force here, which is like this one is not actually. This force is not actually on convoy raiding. If I put this on convoy raiding, both of these on convoy raiding, the efficiency skyrockets. Also, a thing to note about convoy raiding: if you have two fleets like this, they can convoy raid 3 provinces. They will automatically balance out to the provinces that they are convoy raiding in. This also takes a lot of oil, just to note. Now declare war on the Germans, and we'll show you naval combat. As you see here, the this task force, which is on patrol, detected the German ships I put here, and then the United Kingdom the task force joined the battle. And as it's kind of one-sided because I have a lot better ships and a lot more ships than the Germans. But this is an excellent time to explain the different placement. First, I have the screens. These are on the first line. This only takes light damage, but can also do torpedo damage. Torpedo damage can affect any of these ships. And they have the heavy ships. They shoot over the light ships and at the other heavy ships. And then the third, we have the carriers and the convoys. And then we have the fourth, which is the bottom one, where we have the wolf packs and we have the submarines, which have two, as you see here. There's a cross over the eye, meaning they aren't visible. This means that they can't take damage. Submarines can only take damage if they're visible in a combat. If we unpause, we can see what's happening in the combat. It's extremely one-sided. Yep, you see here. These have started to retreat as this combat isn't in their favor. But then this is the Pride of the Fleet. Pride of the Fleet gives extra war support. This here has Pride of the Fleet plus 5% war support. Plus, I can quickly see where the sunken ships go, which are here. We can also see these are detected. Their submarines weren't detected. Their battleship did have time to go even at 1.4% health, meaning they probably will die soon, but like, you know. Then we have a victory. To just see the victory, you can press on this, and then you can see what we killed and what they took down. 2 torpedo naval bombers versus 1 battleships, 2 heavy cruisers, 8 light cruisers, and 9 destroyers. It's a good trade. Also important note, there are 2 stats, just 2 main stats that change during combat: strength and org. Org is organization, and in this case is 40. The higher org you have, this is very different from the here, where organization is how long they can stay in battle, and damage is irrelevant from org. Here, org is directly correlated to how much damage. The lower org, the lower the damage. HP is the strength, which is how good the ships are. And right here, you can see these are damaged, so they can go to port. And now they will repair to get, and it's important to go to naval repair queue and add more dockyards to repair, because you want your things to repair fast. And another important thing to talk about is bombing. If we go to air, if we go here on the air map and put the tactical bombers on the British Channel on port strike and naval strike, port strike is meaningless because port strikes only affects if I put port strike here, or here better, they will port strike the ports on which this province is rated. These won't do anything because the ports are on the mainland and not at the sea. Naval strikes will attack boats in the sea. Important thing to note: naval strikes are overpowered. They can easily decimate a navy, even a large one like the English or the US. Pure air can kill in the matter of seconds. Also important to know about air is naval is the carrier composition. If there are 2 places where you want or what things you want. If you want to have a strike force, if I just quickly speed up time so this will repair so I can easily more easily. Well, if I use this one, which it has primarily heavy ship carriers, then you in that case you want naval bombers. Why? Because naval bombers do damage. So you want oftentimes I personally will do a 50-50 split. 50% naval bombers, 50% fighters. That works most of the time. If the enemy has better fighters than you, then you probably want more fighters. If they have better naval bombers, you want more naval bombers. It's our race here. But if you have a fleet like this, where you have a lot of battleships, the battleships will do damage, not the planes. So in that case, they are really useful for making air supremacy. So in that case, you really don't want naval bombers. You basically only want fighters, which you can kind of easily just shift click like this to get 60. You probably don't have 16 storage, but like still. But for a battle fleet, you want 50-50 split with naval bombers and fighters, and you can also use CAS on this if you want to. But on a support carrier, which this supports the battleships, that's why it's a support carrier. Then you want fighters, only fighters. If you go to this, it's also important. Also important thing to note is you should always split them up because this can only engage one ship at a time. A squadron like this will all 24 planes will attack one boat at a time. The problem with that, all of them can't bomb the boat at the same time, so only like 10 of them will actually bomb the boat. But if you split them up like this, they can bomb a lot of different boats, meaning they will be a lot more efficient. The planes, the fighters will be in a big group over everything, so it won't really make a difference. But the naval bombers will make a big difference because then they can engage a lot of ships at once. Also important to note why carriers are extremely important, can be extremely important, is fighters and planes from carriers will have a 500% higher likelihood when engaging in a battle rather than planes like this, which are only over the sea zone. Planes like this have a 500% lower likelihood than the carriers to engage in a battle. Okay, as a last note, we're going to talk about the doctrines, which are quite simple actually. First, we have fleeting wing, which is basically just battleship primacy, and yeah, it also gives bonuses to other ships like carriers, but primarily battleships. Trade interaction, which gives mainly bonuses to submarines, but also some actually it's actually not bad for carriers too. Not really good for battleships, but well, it's okay to battleships, but mainly submarines. Base strike. This gives mostly, as this whole type is basically just carriers. Some battleships here, but like everything else is carriers. They have some trade interdictions here, and some other stuff. The light cruisers in base strike are quite good, but mainly carriers, mainly subs, and mainly battleships. And I just want to say that. So last note. See ya.